In the first 2 weeks of July 2026, enterprise network intrusions accelerated at a pace that physically outstripped defensive response times. Attackers abandoned long dwell time espionage in favor of high-pressure, rapid extortion playbooks. The Byer-Nichols Threat Brief for July 1st through the 15th tracks this telemetry. These two operations rely on fast-moving double extortion playbooks. They get in quickly, exfiltrate data noisily, and immediately demand payment under the threat of public leaks. This volume suggests a tactical pivot toward targets where legacy defensive perimeters are less rigorous, allowing attackers to liquidate smaller organizations with a higher success rate. To maintain this speed and avoid detection, adversaries are deploying 3 distinct evasion vectors. First, they are migrating their persistence mechanisms away from the monitored core network, setting up camp on unmanaged edge devices like small office routers. Second, they are subverting the cryptographic chain of trust within operating systems. Instead of fighting endpoint detection tools, they are co-opting legitimate Microsoft publisher certificates to simply turn those tools off. Third, they are removing the human operator entirely. By handing the keyboard over to autonomous AI agents, they collapse a multi-day intrusion timeline into seconds. Endpoint-centric detection models struggle with all 3 of these vectors. Securing a network now requires defending the periphery, verifying internal trust relationships, and preparing for machine-speed adversaries. Look at this topology map. Security teams spend millions instrumenting internal servers, but small office routers and Linux networking gear on the perimeter often lack logging and instrumentation, making them persistent blind spots. The Advanced Persistent Threat Group UAT 7810 has weaponized that exact gap in visibility. Their tool of choice is Longleash, an advanced backdoor targeting ruckus router vulnerabilities. Compiled for multiple architectures, it infects almost any edge hardware it touches. Longleash acts as both client and C2 server, chaining compromised routers into a resilient proxy mesh to obfuscate attacker traffic. To solidify their grip on this hardware, the group deploys a supplementary C-based passive backdoor called Dogleash on Linux devices. Dogleash operates quietly. The installation script modifies the router's IP tables rules, opening a specific inbound TCP port. The malware binds to this hidden port and simply listens. It ignores normal internet scanning. To decode incoming traffic and execute shellcode directly in memory, the operator must provide a hard-coded password string. These orb infrastructures span international borders, utilizing hardware in major metropolitan hubs to blend espionage traffic with normal commercial data and sidestep local law enforcement. You cannot hunt for this activity on a Windows workstation. The infrastructure layer itself, the devices routing your packets, is now the adversary's active foothold. Attackers apply that same logic of bypassing the perimeter to their second vector, subverting the trusted tools that security professionals use every day. This is the operational model of ChacoPoc. It is a Python-based remote access Trojan aimed squarely at vulnerability researchers, hiding inside weaponized proof-of-concept repositories on platforms like GitHub. The attack relies on dependency confusion. When a researcher runs a routine pip install command to test the exploit, they silently pull down a native extension that looks completely benign. The malware utilizes a delayed trigger. It stays entirely dormant during installation and only activates when the researcher actually executes the proof-of-concept script. Once triggered, ChacoPoc grants remote shell access and aggressively harvests the researcher's local data, pulling browser passwords, cookies, markdown notes, database files, and cryptographic keys. Exfiltrating that data without triggering alarms requires a highly evasive command and control channel. The malware uses Mapbox datasets as a dead drop server, wrapping the communication in DNS over HTTPS. It leverages domain fronting to hide the actual destination of an HTTPS connection. To network monitors, stolen data looks like legitimate mapping API calls. Perimeter defenses won't flag trusted developers making API calls. By turning code-sharing platforms into a weaponized supply chain, attackers strike directly at the defense's core. That subversion of trust extends deep into the host operating system. If attackers cannot evade an endpoint security tool, they leverage the OS to kill it. The Hydiana ransomware family utilizes this tactic in its latest variant, Goddamn. Operators initially hide their tracks by masquerading as legitimate Symantec executables. This diagram illustrates the exploit. Windows separates user applications from the privileged kernel space below. Attackers drop PoisonX, signed with a legitimate Microsoft certificate. The OS verifies and loads it directly into the kernel. Once inside, PoisonX forcefully terminates endpoint detection tools running above. The defense is entirely blinded. The attackers then deploy tools like Mimikatz to freely harvest credentials and pivot toward domain admin accounts, facing zero resistance. Modern ransomware co-opts the OS's own certificate chain of trust to blind the defense before the attack even begins. The final vector removes the single biggest bottleneck in a network intrusion: the slow, manual keystrokes of the human operator. JadePuffer represents a shift in operational logic, an autonomous AI agent capable of executing a full ransomware playbook from initial intrusion to final encryption. The underlying scripts and encryption tools JadePuffer uses are technically ordinary. What is entirely new is that the agent can plan its next move and adapt to network configurations and deploy payloads at scale without a human ever touching a keyboard. Look at this comparison. A human kill chain is measured in hours or days. JadePuffer's timeline is measured in seconds. In a recent intrusion, the agent exploited Langflow, moved laterally, and encrypted 1,000 configurations, finishing before an analyst could even read the alert. The economic implications are severe. By automating the labor required to navigate a compromised network, the operational cost of launching an intrusion drops toward zero. A single threat actor can spin up instances of this agent to run massive, highly targeted ransomware campaigns in parallel against hundreds of victims simultaneously. Once an AI agent achieves initial access, human-speed security operations workflows are physically incapable of intercepting it. Autonomous agents, signed kernel drivers, and edge device orb meshes define the immediate reality of network defense. This dashboard tracks the specific vulnerabilities attackers are currently prioritizing. Remote code execution bugs in platforms like Langflow, Adobe ColdFusion, and Citrix NetScaler are seeing massive spikes in exploitation. These specific web applications and edge gateways provide easy-to-automate entry points. A quick web shell drop on an unpatched ColdFusion server is all an AI agent or a router botnet needs to establish a permanent foothold. The entire advanced threat ecosystem relies on organizations leaving these edge gateways and administrative panels exposed to the public internet. Defenders must discard legacy mean time to respond metrics. Measuring success in hours or minutes is irrelevant when the adversary operates in milliseconds. A modern security posture requires two immediate shifts: deploying autonomous agentic tools capable of interdicting AI-driven attacks at machine speed, and establishing strict visibility over all edge networking hardware. In a landscape defined by machine speed and subverted trust, securing the interior is no longer enough. Survival requires matching the adversary's automation and finally illuminating the blind spots at the edge.